welcome you here in the European Parliament. We today were proceeding a conference of the Migrant and Refugee Parliament in the European Parliament. And I have 4 guests with me, and I'm very glad to see Latoya, mainly Spain, who's the delegate of the women in this conference, and a member of Arooje. And I'm very glad to have here Akram Gizabi from Afghanistan, who is the president of the World Hazara Council. I'm very glad as well to have Ali Alasan, who is a member of the CISPM, the International Coalition of Migrants, Undocumented Migrants, Refugees, Asylum Seekers, and I'm very happy as well to have here Razia, Arooje, from the RISE network and Girls for Girls. So we want to talk about the conference, and first I like to have a short introduction of each of you about the background of the groups you were participating for and your intention in the conference. So Latoya, can you please introduce the Women Assembly of this conference and give a bit of background information about that?
Yes, thank you very much, Martin. So I have been here at this conference since yesterday, working specifically also with the women's group. And in the women's group, we had women from International Women's Space, women from the Migration Network as well, and all working together to specifically target the issues of women as refugees here in Europe. And also, we have also talked about what recommendations we would like to make and what demands are needed to make the situation, to improve the situation of women. This is a particularly vulnerable group, which is often ignored and not protected enough.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. So, Akram Gizabi, you came a long way from USA for the World Hazara Council. So can you please introduce your network and your intention in this conference to us?
Thank you very much, Martin. I'm glad to be here. Yes, I came a long way from the United States. I am the chairman of World Hazara Council. It's an organization, non-political, non-profit, humanitarian organization. We work for the human rights of the people of Afghanistan, but basically the human rights of the Hazaras. And we also represent the Hazaras in diaspora outside Afghanistan, because as you may know, we have quite a sizable population of Hazaras living in Iran who are under extreme pressure from the Iranian government, and we have also a small minority in Pakistan that they are targeted by the religious extremists, and inside Afghanistan we are targeted both by the Taliban and the ISIS. So I speak a lot about Hazaras today in the panel we spoke, and yesterday. It is not because of any particular reason, but because they are the most vulnerable people in Afghanistan, the majority of the Afghan refugees that come to Europe are Hazaras, and the majority of the refugees that are sent back to Afghanistan is also Hazaras. And that is due to an agreement made with the European government by the Afghan government, European Union, I'm sorry, with the Afghan government in 2016, in which the European Union asked or told or put pressure on the Afghan government to accept the migrants back in return for a sizable amount of aid that they will give them in order to get these people settled in Afghanistan.
Yeah, you mentioned already some aspects which are very important and evident to handle and to tackle, which was discussed in the conference as well. And there we are here with two networks, with CISPM and with RISE. So Razia, could you please tell us a little bit about the RISE network and its intention in this conference and about your group?
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting us for this, for facilitating the whole event and also inviting us for this talk show. RISE is an advocacy network. We are present in around 12 European countries, a member state of the EU. We are present with different migrant associations from Asian, African, and Middle Eastern background. Our main objectives are advocacy for migrants in terms of that we want migrants and refugees should be considered as a participant and should be included in part of the policy making and decision making, not just as a beneficiaries as a receiver. And the second thing that RISE is really stressing upon is to advocate for migrants being at the present and visible at the decision-making level at the European level as well. We want migrants to be involved in policy making and decision-making issues in regard to the migrants and refugees in Europe. And the third kind of our objective or aim is that we believe we can shape a better Europe together with migrant and involving migrant inside. And a decision that we are making together, a collective decision, which is affecting migrants' life, is more inclusive. When it is more inclusive, it will give a positive impact.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much. And Ali Alasan of the CISPM International Coalition and of the group Lampedusa in Hamburg, your coalition is doing a lot of political action and intervention. And our conference, of course, is multilingual. So you will want to contribute in French, which is totally okay. So we do like this. And I think maybe you can express about the work of CISPM and your ideas to this conference.
Merci, je m'appelle Ali. Je viens du Niger et je suis du groupe de Lampedusa Hambourg. Et c'est un groupe auto-organisé à Hambourg des réfugiés et des migrants. Mais nous sommes en coalition avec le groupe de la CISPM, qui est une coalition internationale des sans-papiers et migrants, dont notre but, c'est de lutter pour le droit des migrants et des réfugiés, mais aussi notre plus grand but est la liberté de circulation pour laquelle on lutte depuis, et pour essayer de tout faire pour que l'Union européenne exige que les droits qui ont été jugés comme de la Convention de Genève, ces droits soient appliqués pour la loi de la migration, mais pas pour être que les migrants soient là, mais cette loi n'est pas applicable pour eux. Notre objectif, c'est de lutter pour l'ouverture des frontières, la fermeture des camps des expulsions, l'arrêt des accords bilatéraux entre les pays de départ et les pays d'arrivée, l'arrêt de la répression policière dans les rues contre les migrants et les réfugiés, mais bien sûr des actions bien pratiques que nous avons mis et que nous avons fait. Par exemple, en 2014, nous avons fait une marche de la liberté de Strasbourg jusqu'à Bruxelles, ici dans le Parlement. Et après, on a fait des rencontres à Rome. Et à Hambourg, on a fait une conférence en 2015. Nous avons fait des luttes sur la frontière de Milia, sur la frontière entre l'Italie et l'Autriche, à Thessalonique entre la Grèce et la Macédonie, et sur la frontière entre le Danemark et l'Allemagne. Nous avons passé à peu près 2 à 3 ans que nous luttons à Calais pour l'ouverture de la frontière entre l'Angleterre et la France, dont nous avons apporté une grande solidarité aux migrants qui étaient dans le camp et la jungle. Après 2 à 3 ans de lutte, ils ont pu au moins ouvrir un peu la frontière et donner la possibilité à d'autres de traverser, à d'autres de pouvoir faire leur demande d'asile en France. Donc notre objectif, c'est vraiment la liberté de circulation et d'installation partout et pour tous en Europe.
Yes, you mentioned already some very important issues like the freedom of movement for everybody, and that the European Union and their member states as well should cling to international law and, for example, the Geneva Conventions, and that your network is really working on this. So in the conference, there was a lot of space for networking, and the different migrant organizations, we only have 4 here, there was more than 30 organizations included in this conference. There was more than 120 participants, and it was brought forward that weapon exports and war should stop, and the European Union should do a peaceful politics. There are certain issues which especially affect women. For example, war affects women in a special way, but living in camps and other situations as well. Latoya, can you please stress some aspects which you had been discussing and you want to bring forward now for an intervention level in the European institutions and spheres?
Definitely, we talked about the causes which force a lot of women to flee. And we have to really tackle patriarchy as a form of oppression which forces a lot of women to flee their countries of origin. There is still lacking a focused targeting on this cause of migration. And we have that the policies have to be a bit more sensitive as far as gender-based violence is concerned. A lot of women, a lot of countries are regarded as safe, but we have determined that most countries are not safe for women. If you look at the statistics and the rise of gender-based violence, feminicide, it's really increasing. And we demand that women fleeing from this form of violence are treated, first of all, have protection from the EU, and also have a more sensitive treatment in their asylum process. Women fleeing violence often are treated in the most inhumane manner. First of all, they have to face males in the asylum process who are not sensitive to the fact that women are being traumatized. Even in war situations, conflict situations, rape and other forms of violence are being used as a war tactic or strategy. It's very important to recognize this and to give women as a vulnerable group the type of protection they need, and also to consider the kind of legal support which specifically women should be entitled to in the whole migration process. Another important thing is the qualification of the workers who are in the detention camps and in the centers. I call it detention camps because it's really inhumane to have people in this form of mass accommodation which is taking place. We see it as a violation of human rights. The women have no privacy, and they are also living in fear. It's necessary to have properly trained personnel. The women have to have medical access to proper medical interventions, and counseling, psychological counseling should also be made available to women in these specific situations.
Mm-hmm. Ali, so to your contribution, when we think of freedom of movement as an essential aspect of human rights and human dignity, and when we think then of the situation in the camps, of the situation of deportation and the European politics, what is your network? What are you thinking about this? What should be brought forward? Which kind of demands do you bring forward?
C'est ce que nous disons toujours. Et la liberté de circulation ne s'échange jamais avec quoi qu'elle en soit. Un être humain libre est un être humain complet. Et c'est ça. C'est pour cela qu'on dit qu'il faut qu'il y aura une liberté de circulation. Mais nous voyons en Europe que les ressources minières circulent mieux que les êtres humains. Les ressources, ils peuvent les faire prendre de l'Afrique pour les amener en Europe sans aucun passage de dire qu'ils ne viennent pas, mais les êtres humains ne peuvent pas circuler. Et là, c'est très important de retourner en arrière pour regarder la valeur humaine. L'humain est en dessus de tout. Et la liberté de circulation, c'est ça qui est important, d'abord avant d'avoir toutes les autres choses matérielles dans la vie. Donc pour nous, les migrants, si on n'a pas cette liberté de circulation, notre intégration, qu'ils disent intégration, ou nos luttes, ou bien nos vies, ou bien nos études, ou bien quoi qu'il en soit, ne peut pas être possible. Donc il faut que l'Union européenne sache que la liberté de circulation, c'est un droit. Les gens naissent avec cette liberté. Il ne faut pas qu'eux, ils l'arrachent à nous. Et il faut que nous aurons cette liberté. C'est pour cela qu'on appelle toujours à que les institutions de faire très attention à cette liberté de circulation, l'ouverture des frontières et la possibilité de donner aux gens de s'installer, de travailler, de vivre comme dignes et comme des êtres humains, comme les Européens. On ne veut pas être des Européens, mais eux, ils ont leur liberté de circulation. Dès qu'ils naissent, ils ont ça, ils grandissent avec ça, ils vieillissent avec ça. Mais pourquoi d'autres individus ne peuvent pas avoir cette possibilité? Notre liberté de circulation, on le dit, on le revendique, ça ne s'échange à rien. Donc il ne faut pas qu'ils vont penser qu'en faisant les accords avec nos pays de départ, ils sont en train de nous prendre notre liberté de circulation. C'est à nous de décider qu'est-ce qu'on veut, c'est à nous de décider de circuler. Et puis, ils le veulent, ils ne le veulent pas. Papier sans papier, on circule. On va venir en Europe, on va retourner en Afrique. Mais le plus important pour nous, c'est d'avoir cette liberté de circulation. Et on va le revendiquer parce que c'est un droit. C'est un droit, je veux le dire encore une fois, qui fait partie des conventions de Genève. Cette convention de Genève, cette liberté de circulation fait partie dans ça. Mais pourquoi on est stagnisé dans des pays européens ou bien dans des villes européennes qu'on n'a pas cette liberté? Et on le revendique une fois encore. Et on ne s'arrête pas de lutter pour ça, parce que c'est un droit.
Yes, that's what the GUE NGL as well is struggling for the equal rights and justice for everyone. And human dignity is a fundamental human right. So, and that had been brought forward in this conference as well. So, Razia, your network RISE is an advocacy for refugees. So now, for example, the European is planning to spend more money for the Frontex organization. They want to increase the members who intervene in conflicts from 1,500 to 10,000. Do you think there is better possibilities to spend this money to foster and refugee projects, or for example to stabilize countries instead of doing war? What do you think about these aspects?
As in these 2 days of the discussion that we have, everyone, I think it was not only our network, RISE, but all the other networks, all the participants here were against these decisions to spend money on the Frontex agreements or other even bilateral agreements with the countries for deportation and also for finding specific places for refugees or financing refugees in those countries. Instead of that, they should spend a lot of money here for capacity building, and of the migrants who are here to get involved, to get integrated in the European community better. And also, instead of having, we should tackle and we should address the root causes of immigration, why these people are leaving their countries and coming here. As she also mentioned already, that sending weapons to this country, selling weapons to these countries, that should be stopped. Those are the root causes that if you are not stopping conflict in those regions, if you sign 100 of those agreements, it will not stop immigration. So that's important to see what really the causes So if we are not supporting those dictators, if we are not sending money to weapons to those dictators or selling weapons, so that we should take in consideration the weapons that terrorism are using, and also the other those countries, the dictators or other countries who are fighting against terrorism. These weapons are not produced on those countries. These weapons are produced in developed countries who are against migrants now, apparently. So we should address those root causes of immigration. What are these root causes? Why people are coming here, instead of making these fancy big agreements like Frontex or other bilateral agreements with Turkey, Nigeria or Afghanistan or other countries. Instead of that, let's think on human. Let's put human as our priority. Human rights is the fundamental rights. So immigrants are not they are also human. So when we are deciding on them, so their dignity, as you already mentioned, is important. Their life is important. The right to live is important. So that's the thing that we should spend money on. We should work on their integration here in Europe, and also try to solve those conflicts going on in their countries, and to see what we can do as a European Union to solve the problem of those countries who are producing migrants. So I rise, and also I think all the participants in this conference was believing in that.
Yeah, the many contributions were in that direction, and if you look at the reasons of people who leave their countries, who leave their homes, they do because of war, they do because of economical destabilization, they do because some countries have geostrategical aims. That was one idea of the discussions today.
If I may add one point more to this, is also, as today also mentioned to the Madam MP, that the other thing that we are not saying that you should not make a bilateral agreement to these countries. Like, for instance, I raised the issue with Afghanistan. You should support the fragile, conflict-affected countries, but but not on the fate of the immigrants who are here. You should not sign contracts for deporting these immigrants to those countries and giving the money to these countries. You should build the economic infrastructure in those countries. Those are important stuff that create jobs and keep the people there. It will reduce the amount of migrants in the future, but something will not. If you do not address those issues, migrants will they will be definitely coming. Next year we will still having migrants.
Yeah, it's true, because many contributors were talking as well of the neo-colonialist politics, which exactly doesn't build up the macroeconomical structures. Afghanistan is one country where we can see that this happened since the 1980s. So there had been some reasons Afghanistan had been brought into a situation of war, like the trade routes which are growing there. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about the roots of the conflict in Afghanistan, and what is your demands with your World Hazara Council? What is your basic demands for a future of Afghanistan, or the level of intervention in the European Union?
Actually, in Afghanistan, unfortunately, the West did not really follow its own principles. To begin with, the government that exists in Kabul now is an illegitimate government, because we had elections for a presidency. And at the final stage, there were two candidates that were left. So one had the majority of the rigged votes, the other one had less than that. But since this, the existing president, had 2,200,000 rigged votes, the CEO, that is the second, supposedly the prime minister, so to speak, had 800,000. But since he was coming from a certain ethnic group, they decided that this ethnic group has been traditionally chosen to be the rulers of Afghanistan. He was a Pashtun, so they put him in place. And they made this two-headed monster. It's not part of the constitution. Imagine other countries, in Germany, for example, you have two last candidates, somebody comes in and he says, all right, you become the president, you become the CEO, don't fight. What is the use of having elections when you make this arrangement? From the day that it started, the National Unity Government, up to now, it has not been working. It is a one-man show, so to speak. His vice president was put in exile in Turkey. The second vice president is just for show. CEO and the president don't see eye to eye. They are close to each other, but they don't talk, they don't consult on anything. So this is the main thing. The other thing is that the president wants to monopolize the system in such a way that everything will be concentrated at the hand of one ethnic group. That's why the vice president, as I said, was exiled. And now even when he is in Kabul, he's not been consulted. The first vice president, imagine. And instead, he took a notorious terrorist called Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, who was responsible for about 60,000 lives in Kabul. He effectively destroyed Kabul, rocketed. And he was an international terrorist. According to the United States, he was on a terror list. He made an agreement with this warlord, brought him to Kabul. Now, the president is trying to give 13 provinces to the Taliban. So this is the country is coming off at the seam. The Pashtuns and non-Pashtuns are at odds with each other. Unfortunately, I see very dark clouds on the horizon in Afghanistan because the United States supports blindly this guy, the president, and also brought another person called Zalmay Khalilzad, who is also of Afghan origin. He was the one who made all this mess when he was the viceroy of Afghanistan, so to speak. And now he's brought again.
So I see what you bring forward is Afghanistan is not in a stable
absolutely not.
Status quo. And as an example, many other countries are affected by the politics we are talking of. We are a bit short in time, so each of you have one more aspect to mention, like half a minute or 1 minute, the basic demands or what you want to bring forward. For example, you were talking about the African community is facing a lot of racism and even institutional racism, for example, Arooje. So maybe each of you, first Latoya, can stress it, but bring it to the point so that we have one more sentence of each.
Yeah, just as women are a vulnerable group, people of African descent are also a vulnerable group, especially regarding the asylum migration process. Migration has a long history, and it's a reality. Europeans have been going to Africa under different grounds. But a majority of the refugees are considered economic migrants and are barred away from the asylum process, which means they are forced to live in an undocumented state and denied the basic human rights. Apart from that, we have observed that they face really increasingly a huge amount of violence, police brutality, racial profiling. We had the case of Arooje in Dessau, Adama Traoré in France, and we realized that this is a special group. And as far as we're talking of migrant and asylum rights, the European Union has to face its colonial past and realize that the forced migration is the legacy of this the legacy of colonialism and slavery still continues today, and the racism is still present in the institutions. And we are demanding that as the UN has declared this to be the decade for people of African descent, 2015 to 2024, that we need this to be acknowledged. The European Union has to acknowledge the history and try to combat the racism. We demand that they combat the racism and give enough guidelines there for protection of people of African descent. And also regarding the women, there is the Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And we demand that this be signed by the member states. We need a new set of comprehensive gender guidelines as part of a wider reform. And this also affecting people of African descent.
Yes, thank you very much. Ali, can you tell the basic demands? What is the most important outcome of this conference and the basic demands for you?
I mean, je pense qu'on a beaucoup de demandes, mais pour nous, c'est notre exigence, c'est qu'on exige la régularisation de tous les sans-papiers et migrants dans toute l'Union européenne et l'amélioration des conditions de vie des migrants et des réfugiés. Aussi, donner l'opportunité aux migrants d'aller étudier, de vivre leur vie, mais nous exigeons aussi la fermeture des centres de déportation, l'ouverture des frontières, l'abolissement de la loi du Dublin, qui est vraiment aussi très dur pour nous. Nous demandons aussi à l'Union européenne de plus d'ouverture aux structures administratives pour que les migrants se sentent aussi dans les bureaux des demandes d'asile avec l'appui et la solidarité des autres, des avocats et de la société civile pour qu'il y ait vraiment des appuis pour la traduction quand ils partent dans les centres. Nous exigeons aussi qu'on a plus de possibilités pour pouvoir faire des rencontres. Ça veut dire que les gens puissent vraiment circuler. Comme je le dis encore une fois, la liberté de circulation qui est vraiment très important. Mais avec tout cela, nous voulons aussi, durant les demandes qu'on fait, que l'Union européenne sache qu'en signant les accords avec les pays de départ, ce n'est pas en négociant avec nous. C'est comme il nous aura encore une fois, deux fois de victimes. On est victime ici, on est victime dans nos pays. Il est en train de marchander sur nous. L'Union européenne marchande sur nous avec les pays de départ. Donc nous exigeons qu'ils arrêtent ces accords bilatéraux. Et dans nos pays, qu'ils arrêtent les guerres, l'importation des armes, mais l'exploitation aussi, les multinationales. Il faut qu'ils arrêtent dans nos pays. Les multinationales doivent arrêter. Les ressources minières ne sont pas pour l'Europe. Les ressources minières sont pour nous, pour le développement de nos continents. Quand ils nous laissent en paix, nous-mêmes, on va rester chez nous, on va développer notre pays. On n'a plus besoin de venir en Europe. Mais avec tout cela, la liberté de circulation, c'est un droit pour tous. Si les Européens ont le droit d'aller en Afrique, nous aussi, on a le droit de venir ici. Il n'y a aucune loi. Donc, les demandes sont là, ils sont beaucoup, mais aussi, et aussi une fois, j'appuie aussi sur la question de la déportation. C'est une grande demande pour nous que la déportation soit arrêtée. Il n'y a aucune exigence sur ça. Il faut qu'ils arrêtent l'expulsion. Parce qu'ils expulsent des réfugiés dans des pays en guerre. Ils expulsent des réfugiés dans des pays où le changement climatique est là. Et aujourd'hui, on demande à la société plus d'ouverture, que les gens vivent ensemble. Humainement, sinon la nature nous pousse à vivre ensemble un jour. Et cela, avant que ça s'arrive, il faut qu'on reste des humains et qu'on s'accepte et qu'on vit ensemble. C'est ça qu'on veut, une vie ensemble sans racisme en Europe.
Yes, that is a very strong contribution of you. Thank you. It really means that there is the resources, for example, in Africa or in Afghanistan to stabilize the countries, but the European Union should take care and not destabilize countries, but really make a long-lasting development possible. So maybe just one sentence for you, the basic demand you want to bring forward.
The basic demand that we have at the World Council, and also it is mentioned in the resolution, is the annulment of an agreement made with, between the Afghan government and the European Union to send the refugees to secure regions in Afghanistan. There is no secure region. Afghanistan is a conflict country. It's a country that has been at war for the last 35 or so years. There is no place that is safe. And since, as I said, the majority are Hazara here, the migrants, and the majority that are sent back are Hazaras. And inside Afghanistan, central Afghanistan is considered to be safe. So this is a racial as well as human rights issue, that they send these people back to where they are not safe. Central Afghanistan is not safe. It's, if you consider that safe, then a prison is also safe. You are free inside the prison, but once you want to get out, you're in trouble. We cannot go out and in this free movement. We don't have it. So that is, we want that, agreement to be annulled. And also one small thing, that the European Union finances a lot of things in Afghanistan. We suggest that you ask the Afghan government for transparency. Where do you spend this money that we give you? Because central Afghanistan has been forgotten altogether. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned a problem which is a very big problem in Europe as well. There are pushback operations on the Mediterranean Sea, a militarization of the border of Fortress Europe. People are brought back to countries where there's torture, and some of these countries are even mentioned to be safe, like now Tunisia, Morocco and other countries. This is a big, big problem, and the GUE NGL is fighting, therefore, that legal ways are opened for the refugees and that the militarization of the European Union stops. So you have the last word, Razia. What's your basic demands?
Our network's basic demand was the same as all the other networks also stressed upon, is stopping deportation. Stopping deportation to those countries which are not safe, among others Afghanistan. And we are saying especially women who are coming and escaping from those situations, they are vulnerable, and when they are coming out of that, if you're sending them back, so you are putting their life in danger. So what is really for us matters is the human life. And the second point that we are really, the second point that we really accept as our demand, or put forward as our demand, was inclusion and recognition of immigrants and refugees here in Europe. They should be given a voice. And we believe that such initiatives as Refugee and Migrants Parliament is a beautiful example for it, or as it's a beautiful initiative that could give immigrants here a voice, and they could talk about, they could raise their problem, they can also come out with solutions. So we think, we call upon European Union to make such initiative more sustainable and put it more on an often, on regular basis, not just one time and then forgotten forever. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. So we had a very beautiful and powerful conference. We could talk many more hours about what was happening. We don't have that time. We thank everyone who organized this conference, and we thank everyone who was here, and I thank the guests who were bringing forward at least some ideas of the conference. So we have to struggle, we have to go a long way. We cling to your words. It should be continuously that we do our networking, that we do our interventions here. Thank you very much.